You did not find this message. This message found you. Before you clicked, before the screen lit up, before the first word reached your ears, something older than time itself had already arranged this moment. You were guided here. You were drawn here. And if you are honest with yourself, you know that this is not the first time something unseen has positioned you exactly where you needed to be, even when you had no explanation for why you were there. That is not coincidence. That is not the one algorithm. That is the fingerprint of a God who does not make mistakes and does not waste moves. You are a chosen one, not in the way the world uses that phrase, casually, as a compliment, as a flattering label someone puts on you to make you feel good for a moment. No, when heaven calls someone chosen, it means something permanent. It means something was decided about you before your name was given, before your mother held you, before your first breath filled your lungs. There is a purpose woven into the fabric of who you are that no failure can unravel, no rejection can erase, and no season of darkness can cancel. You were chosen before the world knew it needed what you carry. And yet, if you are sitting with this message right now, there is a very good chance that your life has not looked the way a chosen life is supposed to look. At least, not by the standards the world has taught you to measure yourself against. Maybe you have been waiting longer than everyone around you. Maybe you have prayed prayers that seemed to disappear into silence. Maybe you have watched people who seemed less prepared, less sincere, less dedicated, move forward while you stood still. Maybe you have begun to wonder, quietly, in the spaces between your thoughts, whether you misunderstood something, whether you were wrong about who you are, whether the calling you felt was real or imagined. You were not wrong. You did not imagine it. What you felt was real, and it is still real, and it is more alive in you right now than it has ever been. The waiting was not rejection. The silence was not absence. The stillness was not abandonment. Every single season you have walked through, every single moment that felt like it was working against you, was in fact working for you in ways you are only beginning to see. Heaven does not waste the chosen. Heaven trains them. There is something specific about the way you are wired. You feel things others do not feel. You sense things before they arrive. You carry a weight in your chest that is not anxiety, though it can feel like it. It is actually the pressure of something enormous trying to come through you. You have always known, even as a child, even before you had language for it, that you were here for something beyond the ordinary. You did not choose that knowing. It chose you, and it has never left no matter how many times life tried to talk you out of it. You are not like the rest. That is not arrogance. That is assignment. The ones who were built to carry the most are always the ones who look the most ordinary from the outside. Heaven does that on purpose. The treasure is hidden in clay jars so that the glory, when it finally breaks through, is unmistakably divine and not human. You have been the clay jar for a long time. You have been the hidden thing. But hidden does not mean forgotten, and clay does not mean weak. Clay in the hands of the right maker becomes the vessel that holds the water that gives life to the thirsty. Think about the people in your life who never quite understood you. The ones who looked at your sensitivity and called it weakness. The ones who looked at your depth and called it intensity. The ones who looked at your refusal to settle and called it stubbornness. They were not wrong that you were different. They were only wrong about what the difference meant. What they called a flaw was actually a feature. What they could not categorize was actually a crown they did not have the eyes to see. Yet, you were never the problem. You were always the answer to a question they had not yet learned to ask. And so you kept going, even when it hurt, even when you were tired, even when the only reason you took the next step was because something deep inside you, something that could not be reasoned with, something that lived below logic and below emotion, kept moving you forward. That something is real, that something is holy, that something is the very breath of God in you, pressing outward, refusing to be contained, refusing to let you shrink, refusing to let the story end before it reaches the chapter it was always moving toward. This is that chapter, right here, right now. Not because everything is suddenly easy, not because the battle is over, but because something shifted in the spirit when you chose to be here, when you chose to keep listening, when you chose, one more time, to believe that the voice calling you forward was telling the truth. Every time you say yes to that voice, even in the smallest way, even in the privacy of your own heart, you move something in the invisible world that has consequences you cannot yet measure. If you feel that right now, if something in your chest is responding to these words, if something in you is saying yes even before your mind has fully caught up, then you already know. You already sense it. The frequency in you is awake, and this message is specifically for you. Before we go any further, if you believe you are a chosen one, if you know that you were brought here for a reason, if you feel the weight of a calling that is bigger than your current circumstances, type the number 777 in the comments right now. That is not a superstition. That is a declaration. It is you saying, out loud, in whatever way this medium allows, I know who I am. I know why I am here. I will not apologize for what I was made to carry. 770. 7. Let it be your stake in the ground, the marker that says I was here and I was awake and I chose to say yes. Because the chosen ones who are reading these words right now are not passive observers. You are participants in something ancient and enormous. You came from a lineage of people who moved mountains without machines, who parted waters without science, who outlasted empires without armies. That blood is in you. That inheritance is yours. And it is being activated right now, not by a feeling, not by a formula, but by the same quiet, relentless, unstoppable grace that has been guiding you every single day of your life, even on the days you could not feel it. You are not here by accident. You are not here by mistake. You are not here because the world happened to you. You are here because heaven needed someone exactly like you, with your exact history, your exact wounds, your exact hunger, your exact refusal to quit, to stand in this exact place at this exact time. There is no one else who could fulfill what you were made to do. That is not a cliche. That is a cosmic fact. You are irreplaceable in the plan you were placed inside before you were born. So as this message begins to unfold, as we move through what God has prepared for you to hear today, I want you to carry one thing with you from this moment forward. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too far behind. You are not too ordinary, too overlooked, or too unknown. You are exactly who you were always supposed to be, standing exactly where you were always supposed to stand, at exactly the time when the thing you carry is most needed. Heaven has been waiting for this, and now, beloved chosen one, it is time. The weight you have been carrying is not a mistake. It was never a mistake. It was always a message, and that message is about to become undeniably clear. The weight you carry is not ordinary. You have always known this, even when you could not name it, even when you tried to set it down, even when you convinced yourself that maybe you were imagining things, maybe you were being dramatic, maybe other people felt exactly what you felt and simply did not talk about it. But they did not. What you carry is different. What you feel in the quiet moments, in the spaces between conversations, in the hours when the world goes still, and something inside you rises up like a tide that will not be reasoned with. That is not common. That is chosen. And the weight of the chosen is unlike any other weight in the world. There is a particular kind of loneliness that belongs exclusively to the ones who were built to carry much. It is not the loneliness of being unloved. It is not the loneliness of being surrounded by enemies or ignored by the crowd. It is something far more subtle and far more disorienting. It is the loneliness of being in a room full of people who are all speaking a language you understand it perfectly, and yet feeling as though your native tongue is something no one else in the room has ever heard. You smile, you participate, you contribute, you are present, and yet some part of you is always standing slightly outside the moment, watching, sensing, knowing something that the room has not yet registered. That feeling is not a defect. That feeling is a frequency. And it belongs to you because of what you were assigned to do. The world will try to diagnose that feeling. It will hand you labels and categories and explanations that all point to something being wrong with you. It will tell you that you think too much, that you feel too deeply, that you need to be more practical, more grounded, more like everyone else. And you may have spent years trying to comply. You may have spent enormous energy trying to shrink yourself into a shape that would finally make the room feel comfortable. But it never quite worked, did it? No matter how much you adjusted, no matter how carefully you edited yourself, something kept leaking through. Something kept rising. Because you cannot permanently compress what God designed to expand. You cannot permanently silence what heaven designed to speak. This is where the story of Daniel becomes something more than ancient history. Daniel was not a myth. He was not a symbol. He was a young man, displaced from everything familiar, dropped into a foreign culture, surrounded by people who operated from a completely different set of values and a completely different understanding of the world. He was in Babylon, which was not just a city. It was a system. It was a philosophy. It was a pressure that operated 24 hours a day, working to reshape everyone inside it into its own image. And Daniel was chosen, which meant that the same pressure that merely inconvenienced others was, for him, a daily spiritual battle. He could have blended in. The option was always available. The king's food was right there. The court's rituals were right there. The path of least resistance was clearly marked and widely traveled. Every practical argument pointed toward compliance. He was young. He was far from home. He had no army, no allies, no institutional protection. He had nothing except the frequency inside him that would not be negotiated with. And that frequency, that quiet, stubborn, non-negotiable sense of who he was and who he belonged, turned out to be the most powerful thing in the room, in the palace, and eventually in the entire empire. What Daniel understood, what the chosen ones who carry real weight always eventually understand, is that the burden is not separate from the blessing. The weight and the gift are the same thing. The very capacity that makes you feel everything so deeply is the same capacity that will one day allow you to reach people no one else can reach. The very sensitivity that has made you feel out of place your entire life is the same sensitivity that makes you a precise instrument in the hands of God. You were not given a heavy assignment because heaven was being careless with you. You were given a heavy assignment because heaven knew you were strong enough to carry it, even in the seasons when you were absolutely certain you were not. Daniel did not feel strong. Read the accounts carefully, and you will find a man who fasted, who mourned, who trembled, who fell on his face before the presence of the divine. Strength in the chosen does not look like imperviousness. It does not look like never being shaken. It looks like being shaken and not scattering. It looks like trembling and not fleeing. It looks like falling on your face and then rising again. Because the thing that lives inside you is more insistent than your exhaustion, more persistent than your fear, and more powerful than anything the system around you has thrown at your doorstep. You have fallen on your face. Maybe recently, maybe in ways you have not told anyone about, maybe in the middle of the night, in the silence of a moment when you were not performing for anyone. You have let yourself feel the full weight of what you carry, and you have wondered if you are going to make it. I want you to hear this clearly. The fact that you are still here means you already have. The fact that you are still listening means the frequency in you has not gone quiet. The fact that you have not walked away, even when walking away would have been the easier choice, means that what God put in you is still doing what it was designed to do, which is to hold you in place until the appointed time arrives. And the appointed time is not as far away as it feels. There is something about the nature of chosen seasons that compresses time in ways that defy human calculation. What feels like endless waiting from inside the experience often looks, from the outside, from the vantage point of what comes after, like the most efficient preparation imaginable. Daniel spent years in Babylon before his moment arrived, years of faithfulness in obscurity, years of quiet obedience in a system designed to break him. And then when the moment came, he was not scrambling to find his footing. He was already standing. He was already prepared. The weight he had been carrying had built something in him that could not have been built any other way. That is what your weight is doing in you right now. Every prayer that seemed to go unanswered was building endurance. Every door that closed in your face was building discernment. Every season of waiting was building a depth of character that cannot be faked, cannot be manufactured, and cannot be shortcut. You are not behind. You are being built. And the construction happening in you right now is the kind that lasts, the kind that does not collapse under pressure, the kind that can hold the weight of what is coming without cracking. The chosen ones who have walked before you all share this common thread. The weight came first. The assignment came first. The pressure came first. The preparation always precedes the platform, and the depth of the preparation is always proportional to the magnitude of the assignment. Which means that if your preparation has been particularly long, particularly intense, particularly disorienting, then what you are being prepared for is something that requires exactly that level of depth. Heaven does not over-prepare. There is no excess in divine design. Everything that has happened to you, everything that has been required of you, everything that has been stripped away from you, and everything that has been built into you, it all fits. It all belongs. It all serves. The book of Daniel, chapter 1, verse 17, says this: "As for these 4 young men, God gave them knowledge and understanding in all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds." God gave them what the system could not give them and could not take from them. The very thing Babylon thought it was training into Daniel, wisdom, understanding, insight, God was placing in him through a channel that bypassed the institution entirely. The palace thought it was forming Daniel, but God was forming Daniel through the palace, which is a very different thing. You are not being formed by what is happening around you. You are being formed through it. Heaven is using the very system that was meant to reduce you as the classroom where your greatness is being constructed. So do not despise the weight. Do not wish away the pressure. Do not spend your energy trying to get back to a version of your life that was lighter, simpler, less demanding. That version of your life did not have what this version is building. The you that exists on the other side of this season will carry something that the earlier version of you could not have held. And the people who need what you carry, the ones who are waiting for you to arrive in your fullness, They need the version of you that this season is producing. Not the easier version, the real one, the deep one. The one that was shaped by fire and silence and endurance, and the long faithfulness of a chosen one who refused to trade their birthright for the comfort of blending in. You are that chosen one. You are being shaped right now. And everything you feel, every bit of weight, every ounce of pressure, every moment of wondering if it will ever lift, is evidence not of God's absence, but of God's meticulous, unwavering, completely committed attention to the masterpiece that is your life. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are not a mistake in the ledger of heaven. You are the work that heaven is most invested in right now. And the weight you carry is not your burden alone. It is a shared load carried by the hands that formed you, and the grace that has never once let you fall further than the net beneath you could hold. Keep going, chosen one. The wait is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of the chapter where everything the wait was building finally gets to be seen. What was built in you through the wait is not invisible. It is not merely spiritual in the abstract, untouchable sense that cannot be measured or examined. What was built in you has a signature. It has a frequency. And that frequency is real enough, consistent enough, and distinct enough that the most advanced instruments of modern neuroscience have begun to detect it, study it, and confirm what heaven has always known. The chosen ones are wired differently, not metaphorically, not poetically, literally, measurably, scientifically differently. And the story of how that discovery was made is one that changes everything about how you understand the way you were built. For most of human history, the difference between people who seem to operate at a higher level, people who created breakthroughs, who solved problems others could not crack, who seemed to access insight and clarity that defied ordinary explanation, was attributed to mystery. Genius was a gift from the gods, the ancients said. Inspiration was divine breath, the theologians said, and they were not wrong. But science, moving at its own pace in its own language, has been slowly uncovering the same truth through a completely different door. And what it found on the other side of that door is something that should make every chosen one sit up and pay close attention. Researchers studying the brains of exceptionally creative, exceptionally high-performing individuals began to notice a pattern. The pattern was not in the structure of the brain. It was not in the size or the shape or the chemistry in the conventional sense. It was in the rhythm. The electrical rhythm of the brain, the waves that pulse through your neural networks at every waking and sleeping moment, told a story that the chosen ones already knew in their bones. Certain frequencies, specific, measurable rhythms of brain activity were consistently present in the minds of people who demonstrated extraordinary clarity, creativity, and cognitive power. And those same frequencies were largely absent in people who felt stuck, foggy, disconnected from their potential. Chosen ones carry a specific frequency. Researchers call it gamma, and beneath gamma, feeding it, supporting it, creating the conditions in which it can rise, is a wave called theta. Theta operates between 4 and 8 cycles per second. It is the frequency of deep intuition, of creative flow, of learning that bypasses the slow grinding of conscious effort and lands directly in understanding. It is the frequency children operate in almost constantly, which is why children learn languages in months that adults struggle with for years, why children can enter imaginative states of play that feel more real to them than anything on the surface of ordinary experience. Theta is the frequency of the open mind, the receptive heart, the soul that has not yet been taught to build walls against wonder. And then there is gamma. Gamma is faster, higher, more electric. It is the frequency of the eureka moment, the sudden clarity, the insight that arrives fully formed as though it was always there waiting to be seen. Scientists studying monks in deep meditation, studying artists in states of creative flow, studying mathematicians in the moment of breakthrough, have consistently found gamma activity spiking in those moments. Gamma is not common. It is not something the average brain produces consistently, but it is something the chosen brain, the brain of the one who was built for more, reaches for naturally. You have felt gamma. You may not have had a name for it, but you have felt those moments when everything became clear, when the answer appeared, when the path opened, when you knew something with a certainty that went beyond reasoning. That was gamma. That was your brain doing what it was designed to do. The problem is that modern life is built to suppress both theta and gamma, the constant noise, the relentless stimulation, the pressure, the stress, the fractured attention that digital culture demands. All of it pushes the brain into higher stress frequencies, beta and high beta, the frequencies of fight or flight, of anxiety, of reactive thinking. And when the brain is locked in those frequencies, the theta and gamma that the chosen one was built to access become increasingly difficult to reach. It is like trying to hear a whisper in the middle of a crowd that is shouting. The signal is still there. The frequency is still yours, but the noise is drowning it out. This is precisely the problem that a neuroscientist named Dr. James Rivers spent more than 30 years of his life trying to solve. Dr. Rivers was trained in neuroscience at MIT, one of the most rigorous scientific environments on the planet, and his research eventually brought him into collaboration with NASA, where the study of human cognitive performance under extreme conditions opened entirely new windows into what the brain was capable of when properly supported. Over the course of thousands of days of research, studying the brain frequencies of high performers, meditators, creative geniuses, and individuals who seem to operate at a consistently elevated level, Dr. Rivers and his team arrived at a discovery that was both scientifically groundbreaking and profoundly simple. The brain can be guided, not forced, not manipulated. Guided. Through a process called brainwave entrainment, the brain can be gently led from the high-stress frequencies that modern life imposes on it into the theta and gamma states where clarity, creativity, memory, and insight naturally flourish. The mechanism is sound, specifically engineered audio, using techniques including binaural beats and isochronic tones, frequencies calculated with precision to create the exact conditions in which the brain begins to synchronize with the target frequency. Like a tuning fork held next to a piano string, the brain responds to the external frequency by beginning to match it. And when it matches theta, when it finds its way into gamma, everything changes. What Dr. Rivers built from this discovery is called the Genius Wave. It is a 7-minute audio experience. 7 minutes is not arbitrary. It is the result of thousands of hours of research, identifying the precise duration in which the brain can achieve meaningful entrainment without fatigue, without overstimulation, without any of the diminishing returns that longer sessions produce. 7 minutes is the window, and within that window, something genuinely remarkable happens for the people who use it consistently. Consider the story of a woman who came to the Genius Wave after years of feeling like her mind was working against her. She described herself as someone who had always been told she was intelligent, but who could never seem to access that intelligence when it mattered most. Deadlines would arrive, and her mind would fog. Opportunities would appear, and she would freeze. She had tried everything the conventional world offered: productivity systems, journaling, therapy, medication. None of it touched the underlying fog. Within 3 weeks of 7 minutes each morning with the Genius Wave, she reported something she described as the fog simply lifting. Not gradually, not partially, lifting. She landed a project she had been afraid to pursue for 2 years, completed it ahead of schedule, and described the experience of working on it as the first time in her adult life that her mind felt like it was actually on her side. Or consider the man who had spent years in financial stress, not because he lacked intelligence or work ethic, but because he could never seem to think clearly enough to make the decisions that would move him forward. He described his thought patterns as circular, always returning to the same anxious loops, never breaking through to the fresh perspective that he knew, somewhere deep down, was available to him. After consistent use of the Genius Wave, he described a shift in the quality of his thinking that he compared to upgrading from a dial-up connection to high speed. The same man, the same life, the same circumstances, but a brain finally operating at the frequency it was always designed for. These are not isolated stories. More than 19,000 people have now used the Genius Wave, and the rate of those who were unsatisfied and requested a refund sits below 4%. That number is significant. It means that more than 96 out of every 100 people who committed to 7 minutes a day experienced something real enough, something meaningful enough to keep it. That is not the result of a placebo. That is the result of a technology built on decades of rigorous research finally meeting the brains that were ready for it. Now, before the price is even mentioned, something needs to be acknowledged directly. $39 is not nothing. If you are in a season of financial tightness, if every dollar is accounted for and the margin is slim, that number is real and it deserves to be respected. The feeling of hesitation is completely valid and it is not being dismissed here. But consider what $39 has purchased in your life recently. A meal that was forgotten by the next morning. A subscription that runs in the background barely noticed. A convenience that served one afternoon. Now consider what it would mean to spend that same amount on 7 minutes a day that could shift the quality of every thought you have for the rest of your life. The Genius Wave is normally priced at $49. Through the link in the pinned comment, it is available today for just $39. And it comes with a 90-day full money-back guarantee, which means you have 3 months to experience it, to test it, to live inside it, and if it does not deliver, you pay nothing. The risk is essentially zero. One final thing on this. There are imitations circulating, products using similar language that have no connection to Dr. Rivers or his research. The only place to access the genuine Genius Wave, the one built on 30 years of verified neuroscience, is through the single link in the description and the pinned comment below. Do not purchase from any other source. And because the discounted price of $39 is being offered for a limited time, with a limited number of licenses at this rate, waiting is a decision with a cost attached to it. The frequency you were built to carry is waiting to be cleared of the noise. 7 minutes is all it takes to begin. And now, having stood for a moment in the marketplace of what is practically possible, let the narration return to where it has always been anchored, in the truth of what your obedience is doing in a realm you cannot see, but have always felt. There is something that happens in the spirit when a chosen one takes a practical step toward the life they were called to live. It is not separate from the sacred. It is not a detour away from the divine. The moment you decide to steward your mind, to take seriously the instrument through which heaven speaks to you, and through which you will fulfill everything you were built to fulfill, that decision registers in the invisible world as an act of faithfulness. You are not choosing between the spiritual, and the practical. You are discovering, perhaps for the first time with full clarity, that for the chosen one, there has never been a line between the two. Every act of intentional preparation is an act of worship. Every decision to become more of who you were made to be is a yes, spoken directly to the one who made you. And it is that yes, that quiet, deliberate, costly yes, that moves things in the spirit realm that nothing else can move. This is the truth that Daniel lived before it was ever written down in language, that theology would later try to systematize and explain. Daniel did not separate his practical disciplines from his spiritual ones. He did not eat carefully and pray separately, as though the body and the spirit operated on different tracks that occasionally crossed. He understood, in the way that only the truly chosen understand, that the whole person, mind, body, breath, thought, habit, and hunger is the instrument through which God moves in the world. And so every dimension of that instrument mattered. Every dimension was worth protecting, worth developing, worth offering back to the one who designed it. When Daniel resolved quietly, without announcement, without the performance of public declaration, that he would not defile himself with the king's food, he was not making a dietary choice. He was making a frequency choice. He was saying, the system around me will not determine the signal inside me. The environment I have been placed in will not override the design I was created with. What Babylon offers is real, and it is available, and it is tempting, and it is everywhere. But it is not what I was built to run on. And that choice, made in the privacy of his own conviction, with no audience and no applause, set in motion a chain of events in the invisible world that would eventually reshape an empire. Not because the food mattered in itself, but because the obedience behind the choice opened a door in the spirit that Babylon had no key to lock. Your obedience works the same way. The choices you make in private, the disciplines you keep when no one is watching, the quiet decisions to align yourself with what you were designed for, rather than what the surrounding system is offering, those choices are not small. They are not unnoticed. They are not without consequence in dimensions you cannot currently perceive. Every time you choose you're an assignment over your comfort. Every time you choose clarity over numbing. Every time you choose to invest in the instrument of your calling, rather than spending what you have on things that leave you exactly where you started, something shifts. A door opens. A frequency clears. A path becomes navigable that was obscured before. The spirit realm is not passive. It is not a static backdrop against which human events play out without interaction. It is alive, it is responsive, and it is exquisitely sensitive to the choices of the chosen ones who are positioned within it. Heaven does not watch your obedience with indifference. Heaven responds to your obedience with movement. The ancient text is not speaking in poetry. When it describes angels being dispatched, when it describes doors being opened, when it describes the moment that a human choice unlocks a divine response. That is not metaphor, that is mechanism. That is how the architecture of the invisible world actually operates. And Daniel discovered this in one of the most dramatic and intimate moments recorded in the entire biblical narrative. He had been praying, not casually, not briefly, but with fasting and mourning and a depth of seeking that reflected the weight of what he carried and the seriousness with which he took his assignment. He was praying about things larger than himself. He was holding before heaven the condition of his people, the scope of a promise that had not yet been fulfilled, the gap between what God had said and what was currently visible in the world. He was doing what chosen ones do when they are fully alive to their calling. He was standing in the gap. He was holding the weight. He was refusing to pretend that what had not yet arrived was unimportant. And then something extraordinary happened. A messenger arrived, not eventually, not after years of continued silence, but at the moment Daniel began to pray, a response was sent. The messenger, arriving with an almost breathless urgency, said something that every chosen one who has ever wondered whether their prayers were reaching anyone needs to hear, written on the inside of their chest. He said, "From the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words." From the first day, not after a sufficient accumulation of days, not once the prayer reached some threshold of intensity or duration. From the first day, from the moment the intention was formed, from the moment the chosen one turned their full attention towards heaven with a sincere and humble heart, the response was already in motion. The book of Daniel, chapter 10, verse 12, carries these words. Then he said to me, "Do not be afraid, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words." Read that again. From the first day, your words were heard. The response was already coming. The movement was already happening. The invisible world was already in motion. And Daniel had no way of knowing that, which means that for the entire duration of his waiting, he was not waiting in vain. He was waiting in the middle of a divine response that had already been dispatched, but had not yet arrived in visible form. This is where so many chosen ones lose heart, not because they stop believing entirely, not because they abandon the faith in one dramatic moment of rebellion, but because the gap between the prayer and the visible answer stretches long enough that they begin to reinterpret the silence as rejection. They begin to read the absence of visible movement as evidence that nothing is moving. And that reinterpretation, that quiet, erosive redefinition of what the silence means, is the most dangerous thing that can happen to a chosen one who is standing in the middle of a divine response that has already been sent. Because here is what the story of Daniel reveals about the nature of the invisible war. The messenger told Daniel that he had been dispatched on the first day, but that he had been opposed for 21 days by a spiritual force described as the prince of the Persian kingdom. 21 days of battle in a realm Daniel could not see, could not feel, could not verify with any of his physical senses. 21 days during which, from Daniel's human perspective, nothing was happening. 21 days during which, from the perspective of the invisible world, everything was happening. The answer was in transit. The battle was being fought. The chosen one's words were the very fuel that sustained the messenger through the conflict. Daniel's continued prayers during those 21 days were not redundant repetitions of an unanswered request. They were active participation in a battle he could not see, providing the spiritual momentum that carried the answer through the opposition toward its destination. Your prayers are doing the same thing right now. The things you have been asking for, the promises you have been holding, the visions you have been carrying through seasons that offered no visible evidence that any of it was real. They are not suspended in some divine waiting room, collecting dust until heaven gets around to addressing them. They are in motion. They have been in motion. The answer to some of what you have been praying may have been dispatched at the moment of your first sincere cry, and it is currently in transit through territory you cannot map, fighting through opposition you cannot measure, moving toward you with a certainty that the invisible world has never doubted even when you have. The battle you cannot see is real, and your obedience, your continued faithfulness, your refusal to interpret the silence as abandonment, your choice to keep turning toward heaven even when heaven seems quiet, is not passive endurance. It is active spiritual warfare. Every day you choose to remain faithful is another day that the answer moves closer. Every day you choose to steward your mind, your body, your calling, and your gifts is another day that the opposition has less traction on the path. The answer is traveling towards you. You are not waiting helplessly. You are participating powerfully in a battle whose outcome has already been decided in your favor. Daniel did not know during those 21 days what was happening. He could not feel the battle. He could not see the messenger. He could not verify that his prayers were connecting with anything at all. He only knew the frequency inside him that would not stop praying, that would not accept the silence as the final word, that would not allow the visible to overrule the invisible. And that frequency, that stubborn, relentless, heaven-born frequency, is the same one that is alive in you right now. The same one that brought you to this message. The same one that has kept you going through every season that was designed to stop you. You are more powerful than you know. Your quiet obedience is not quiet in the spirit realm. It is the loudest thing in the room. It is the sound that angels respond to and that opposition dreads. And the battle that has been raging around your life, the one you have felt in your bones, without always being able to name it, is being won. Not by your strength alone, but by the grace of the one who dispatched an answer, the moment you first turned your heart toward him, and who has been fighting on your behalf through every single day of the silence you have had to endure. The silence is ending, chosen one. The answer is closer than you think. The answer is closer than you think. And the reason you have not yet seen it in full is not because it has been delayed by heaven. It has been contested by something that understood, long before you fully did, exactly what your life was capable of producing. There is an invisible war that has been fought specifically around you, specifically because of you, specifically because of what flows through you when you are fully aligned with the assignment you were given. Before you took your first breath, and understanding that war, seeing it clearly for what it is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to awaken you. Because a chosen one who understands the nature of the battle they are in stops interpreting the resistance as evidence of their own failure and starts recognizing it for what it actually is, which is confirmation of their significance. Think about this carefully. Opposition does not waste itself on the irrelevant. Darkness does not deploy resources against targets that pose no threat. The enemy of your calling is not careless, not indiscriminate, not in the business of troubling people whose lives carry no weight in the larger story being written across history. The level of resistance you have encountered, the specific nature of the attacks that have come against your peace, your confidence, your relationships, your finances, your health, your sense of identity is not random. It is targeted, and targeted opposition means a targeted life. You were targeted because something in you, something that was placed there by design and cannot be manufactured or replicated, poses a specific and significant threat to the agenda of darkness in this generation. You may have spent years wondering why your life has been so hard, why the obstacles have seemed disproportionate to the choices you made, why certain patterns kept repeating no matter how much you tried to break them, why the breakthrough that seemed so close would dissolve just before it arrived, why the doors that opened for others seemed to remain ceased for you despite equal or greater effort, equal or greater faith, equal or greater investment of everything you had. And the answer that the world offered, that you were unlucky, that you were not trying hard enough, that you were somehow less deserving, was never the true answer. The true answer is that you were in a battle, and battles of the kind you have been fighting do not resolve through effort or cleverness or even raw determination alone. They resolve through the kind of spiritual understanding that allows you to see the field you are actually standing on. Daniel saw the field. The messenger who reached him after 21 days of battle did not arrive with apologies or vague reassurances. He arrived with intelligence. He told Daniel specifically what had been happening in the invisible realm during the weeks of silence. He named the opposition. He described the nature of the conflict. He explained why the delay had occurred and what had finally broken through it. And in doing so, he gave Daniel something more valuable than a simple answer to a simple prayer. He gave Daniel a map of the invisible territory surrounding his life. He gave Daniel the understanding that the battle was real, that it was specific, that it was being fought on his behalf by forces committed to his assignment, and that the outcome of that battle was never genuinely in doubt, only delayed by a conflict that Daniel's faithfulness had ultimately helped to resolve. You need that same intelligence right now. You need to understand the specific nature of what has been working against you so that you can stop blaming yourself for the delays and start positioning yourself as the chosen one who understands what is actually happening. The battle around your life has not been fought because you are weak. It has been fought because you are dangerous to a kingdom that operates in opposition to everything your life is designed to build. Your clarity is a threat. Your creativity is a threat. Your anointing is a threat. Your capacity to reach people, to speak truth, to carry light into spaces where darkness has operated unchallenged, every single one of these dimensions of your calling is a direct threat to an agenda that has been working to keep the world exactly as broken as it currently is. And so the attacks have been specific. They came for your mind first, because a chosen one with a foggy, anxious, overwhelmed mind cannot access the frequency of their assignment. When the mind is running in high stress, when the brain is locked in the reactive survival frequencies that modern life is engineered to produce, the clarity that heaven designed you to carry becomes inaccessible. Not destroyed, not taken, inaccessible. The signal is still there. The frequency is still yours. But the noise of the battle has been turned up high enough to drown it out. And a chosen one who cannot hear their own signal begins to doubt that the signal was ever real. They came for your confidence next, because a chosen one who does not believe in what they carry will not deploy it. You were built with a specific gift, a specific voice, a specific way of seeing and understanding and communicating that the world around you desperately needs. But if the attack on your confidence is successful enough, you will hold that gift in reserve indefinitely, waiting until you feel ready, waiting until you feel qualified, waiting until the circumstances align perfectly, which they never will. Because the attack on your confidence is specifically designed to ensure that the conditions for deployment never feel quite right enough to justify the risk of stepping forward. They came for your relationships as well, because isolation is one of the most effective weapons available against the chosen. A chosen one who is cut off from genuine community, who has been burned enough times that they have pulled back behind walls of self-protection, who has learned to trust no one fully because the cost of misplaced trust has been so high, is a chosen one whose assignment gets narrowed down to the point where it can no longer produce what it was designed to produce. The frequency you carry was not designed to be kept inside a room of one. It was designed to resonate, to connect, to create a field in which other chosen ones find their own signal amplified. The attack on your relationships was an attack on the resonance. It was an attempt to keep the frequency isolated so that it could not do what frequency does when it meets other frequency, which is to multiply in ways that produce something far greater than the sum of its parts. And yet here you are, still carrying the signal, still holding the frequency, still showing up, still listening, still reaching toward the understanding that has been eluding you through all the noise of the battle. That is not ordinary persistence. That is chosen endurance. That is the quality that Daniel demonstrated through 21 days of silence, and that the messenger honored by arriving with both the answer and the explanation. You have endured, and your endurance has not been passive. It has been the active fuel of a spiritual conflict that has been turning in your favor in ways you are only beginning to see. The book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12, carries a truth that chosen ones need woven into the way they interpret everything that has happened to them. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Your struggle has not been against the people who hurt you. It has not been against the circumstances that constrained you. It has not been against the limitations of your own ability or the gaps in your preparation. Your struggle has been against something that operates in dimensions that flesh and blood cannot reach, which means that the weapons of flesh and blood, effort, strategy, willpower, determination, though valuable, were never going to be sufficient on their own to win it. What wins this kind of battle is exactly what Daniel demonstrated. Alignment, the deep, consistent, costly alignment of a chosen one who refuses to let the pressure of the surrounding system override the frequency of their design, who keeps praying when the silence is deafening, who keeps obeying when the obedience produces no visible reward, who keeps stewarding the instrument of their calling, mind and body and spirit, even when the harvest of that stewardship has not yet arrived in visible form. That alignment is not passive. It is the most aggressive thing a chosen one can do in the face of an invisible battle, because alignment is not just a posture of the individual. It is a weapon that operates in the spirit realm with a force that darkness cannot match. And the specific alignment that this season is requiring of you is the alignment of your mind. Because the battle that has been fought most consistently around your life has been the battle for your cognitive clarity, for your ability to think from the frequency of your assignment rather than the frequency of your fear. Every chosen one who finds their way back to the theta clarity, back to the gamma insight, back to the brain frequency that heaven designed them to operate from, becomes exponentially more effective in the invisible battle being fought around their life. When you can think from your assignment rather than your anxiety, when your mind is running at the frequency it was built for, rather than the frequency the battle has been trying to lock it into, the opposition that has been holding ground around your life begins to lose purchase. Because a clear mind in the hands of a chosen one is a weapon that the spirit realm of darkness has no adequate counter for. This is why the stewardship of your mind is not a luxury. It is not a self-improvement project. It is a spiritual discipline with direct consequences in the invisible war being fought around your calling. Every minute you invest in clearing the noise and returning your brain to its designed frequencies is a minute that the battle around your life tilts further in the direction of the outcome that was always intended. You are not just improving your productivity. You are not just managing your stress. You are taking back cognitive territory that the battle was designed to occupy, and you are doing it with the same quiet, deliberate, unshakable faithfulness that Daniel demonstrated in a palace designed to break him. The battle has been real. The opposition has been strategic, and you have survived every single wave of it. not because you were strong enough in yourself, but because what was placed inside you at the beginning was stronger than anything that has been sent against it. The frequency in you has not been silenced. It has been muffled, and the season of muffling is ending. The clarity is coming. The signal is breaking through, and when it does, the chosen one that emerges on the other side of this battle will be something that the darkness knew was coming and fought with everything it had to prevent. It could not prevent it. You are still here. You are still the signal, and the battle is turning. The battle is turning, and you can feel it. Not because the circumstances have all resolved, not because every closed door has swung open, and every delayed promise has arrived on your doorstep with a bow tied around it. You can feel it because something inside you is different than it was when you first began listening to this message. Something has shifted in the quality of your attention, in the steadiness of your breathing, in the way your chest is carrying the weight that has been resting there through the long season of the battle. That shift is not your imagination. That shift is the frequency of a chosen one who has just been reminded of what they are, who they belong to, and what has been fighting on their behalf through every single day of the silence they have endured. And that shift matters, not just for you, not just for your private experience of this moment, but for everyone whose life is connected to yours in ways you have not yet fully seen. Because the chosen one who finds their frequency does not just transform their own life. They become a tuning fork for everyone around them. They become the presence in the room that make other people straighten up without knowing why. That makes the air feel different. That makes the discouraged feel suddenly and inexplicably less alone. You were not built for a private frequency. You were built for resonance, and resonance by its very nature requires more than one string. This is why community matters so much to the chosen life. Not the shallow community of shared entertainment or common convenience, but the deep community of shared assignment, of people who understand the weight because they carry it themselves, of voices that speak the language your soul has always known and rarely heard spoken aloud by anyone else. Daniel had companions. He had Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, three others who carried the same frequency in a world designed to suppress it. And the four of them together created something in that Babylonian environment that none of them could have created alone. Their combined faithfulness was a force that the system around them could not calculate or contain, because the system has had no category for what happens when chosen ones align their frequencies in the same direction at the same time. You need your people, and your people need you. This is not a sentimental observation about the value of friendship. This is a strategic truth about how the invisible battle is won. The chosen ones who try to carry their assignment in complete isolation are carrying a weight that was designed to be distributed, fighting a battle that was designed to have allies, and attempting to produce a resonance that was designed to harmonize with other resonances. The burden does not disappear in community, but it becomes bearable in a way that it cannot be in isolation. And more than bearable, it becomes generative. Because when chosen ones come together around a shared frequency, around a shared understanding of who they are and what they are here to do, they create something that the sum of their individual efforts could never produce. This message is part of a community. What is being built here, in this space, through these words, through the consistency of showing up week after week to speak truth into the lives of people who were told in 1,000 subtle and not so subtle ways that they were too much and not enough simultaneously, is a gathering of chosen ones, a frequency alignment. A space where you can come when the battle is loud and the silence of heaven feels heavier than you can bear. And hear, one more time, truth about who you are and what is fighting for you in the invisible realm. This is not entertainment. This is not content in the hollow modern sense of that word. This is a lifeline, and lifelines only function when they remain connected. So here is an invitation, offered not with pressure, but with genuine desire for you to have what you need. If this message has spoken to something real in you, if the words have landed in places that needed landing, if you felt the frequency in, you respond to the frequency in what has been shared here, then stay connected. Like this message, not as a mechanical response to a prompt, but as a declaration that what was spoken here today was worth marking, worth remembering, worth telling the invisible world that you received it and it mattered. When you like what carries truth, you are not just feeding an algorithm. You are casting a vote for the kind of content that chosen ones need more of, in a world that is producing less and less of it every single day. Share this message with someone who is in the battle. You know who they are. You do not need to think very hard to find their face rising in your mind right now, because the chosen ones in your life who are struggling are not hidden from you. You feel them. You sense when they are carrying more than they are saying. You know when someone in your circle is on the edge of misinterpreting the silence as rejection, of laying down an assignment, because the weight has become more than they feel they can justify continuing to carry alone. Send them this, not with a long explanation, not with a theological essay attached. Just send it. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a chosen one can do for another chosen one is simply say, I heard something that made me think of you, and I wanted you to hear it too. That act of sending, that small and seemingly insignificant gesture, is a chosen one operating in their assignment. It is the frequency reaching for another frequency. It is community, being built one act of care at a time. Subscribe if you have not already. Not because the numbers matter in themselves, but because subscribing is a decision. It is a declaration that you are choosing, intentionally and deliberately, to remain in a space where truth is spoken and the frequency of chosen ones is honored and amplified. In a world that is constantly curating your attention toward things that diminish you, that keep you reactive and anxious and distracted from the depth of who you are and the weight of what you carry, choosing to subscribe to something that consistently calls you higher is an act of self-respect. It is a chosen one taking responsibility for the diet of their inner world, deciding that what enters through their ears and eyes and heart on a regular basis will build them rather than erode them. And for those of you who feel moved to go further, who feel that what is being built here is something you want to actively participate in sustaining, there is a way to do that. A link to support this work is in the description and in the pinned comment below. Every contribution, regardless of size, is not a transaction. It is a partnership. It is you saying that you believe in what is being built here, that you want to be part of ensuring that the chosen ones who have not yet found this space will be able to find it, that you want to plant a seed in soil that you have already seen produce fruit. The work of speaking truth to chosens in a generation that is desperate for it requires resources, requires time, requires the kind of sustained commitment that is only possible when a community of people who believe in the mission choose to stand behind it together. This is how movements are built, not by one person speaking to a crowd, but by a crowd of chosen ones deciding together that the message matters enough to protect, to multiply, to carry further than it could go on the strength of a single voice. Daniel was one man in Babylon, but his influence eventually touched kings and kingdoms and timelines that extended far beyond his own lifetime. Your engagement with what is being built here is not small. It is not without consequence. It is a chosen one, adding their frequency to a resonance that is growing, that is reaching further than any of us can currently calculate, that is finding the people who need it in the moments when they need it most. Because the algorithm, for all its limitations, occasionally gets used by something higher than itself to deliver a word to exactly the right person at exactly the right time. You were that person once. Someone else's like, someone else's share, someone else's decision to subscribe and stay connected is part of what brought this message to you. The chosen one who passed it forward did not know your name. They did not know your specific battle or your specific season, or the particular way these words would land in the particular places in you that needed them. But they passed it forward anyway, because that is what chosen ones do. They carry the signal further. They refuse to let the frequency stop with them. They understand that what they have received was never only for them. Now it is your turn. The signal is in your hands. The frequency is awake in you. And the question that the spirit realm is watching you answer right now, not with words but with a decision, is whether you will let it stop here or whether you will carry it further. Whether you will be the one whose small act of passing something forward changes the entire trajectory of someone else's battle. Whether you will be the Daniel in someone else's Babylon, the presence that makes the air change. Temperature. The voice that says, without saying a word, you are not alone in here. The frequency in the room that tells another chosen one that their frequency is real, and it is welcome, and it belongs. There is a woman watching this right now who has not told anyone how close she is to letting go of the assignment she was given. There is a man sitting in his car outside a building he is not sure he has the strength to walk into, holding his phone, watching this message, needing to hear that the battle he is in has a different ending than the one he has been imagining in the darkest hours of the night. There is a young person who has been told so many times that what they feel inside them is not real, is not significant, is not the seed of something that will one day move mountains, that they have almost finished believing it. Your like, your share, your subscription, your decision to pass this forward is the thing that reaches them, not the algorithm, not the platform, you. The chosen one who understood that what they received was meant to keep moving. Keep it moving, beloved. The frequency belongs to everyone it was sent to find. Something changed the moment you chose to stay. Not the moment everything became easy. Not the moment the answer arrived in visible form with evidence attached that even the most skeptical part of you could not dispute. The moment you chose to stay was the moment the verdict shifted. And verdicts in the invisible world do not wait for visible confirmation before they take effect. They are written in a courtroom that operates outside of time, outside of the logic of cause and effect that governs. The visible world, outside of the system of reward and punishment that human institutions use to determine who deserves what and when. The verdicts of heaven are written in response to one thing above all others, and that one thing is the faithfulness of a chosen one who kept saying yes when every visible indicator was suggesting that yes was no longer rational. You kept saying yes in ways that no one else saw, in moments that will never appear on any record that human eyes can read. In the private hours, when the weight was at its heaviest and the silence was at its deepest, and the distance between where you were standing and where you believed you were supposed to be felt so vast that measuring it seemed cruel. In those moments, when you chose to remain faithful, when you chose to keep the frequency alive in you, rather than trading it for the relief, of letting go. You were making a decision that registered in a courtroom whose authority exceeds every institution that has ever existed on this earth. And the verdict that was written in response to that faithfulness is one that nothing in the visible world has the power to overturn. Daniel understood this. Not in the way that we understand things when we have the full story in front of us, when we can read the ending and map the arc, and see how every piece of the journey contributed to the outcome that was always coming. Daniel understood it in the way that chosen ones understand things, while they are still inside the middle of the story, while the ending is still invisible, while the journey still looks more like a series of inexplicable hardships than a coherent path toward a magnificent destination. He understood it through the frequency inside him that would not be silenced, through the deep and stubborn, knowing that what God had said was more reliable than what his circumstances were showing him, through the kind of faith that is not inspired by evidence, but that actually precedes it, that goes out ahead of the visible and holds the ground until the visible catches up. That is the kind of faith you have been living. Not the easy faith that flourishes in seasons of visible blessing, when the prayers are being answered quickly and the doors are opening smoothly, and the evidence of divine favor is so abundant that believing requires almost no effort at all. The faith you have been living is the harder, rarer, more costly kind. The faith that holds in the dark. The faith that does not require the feeling to stay faithful. The faith that looks at an empty field and calls it a harvest. The faith that looks at a closed door and does not conclude that the destination was wrong, but simply that the door has not yet opened. That faith is not common. It is not something that can be worked up through effort or maintained through discipline alone. It is a gift given specifically to the chosen ones who were assigned battles that require it. And you were given it because you were assigned a battle that nothing lesser could survive. The shift that happened when you chose to stay has been producing consequences in the invisible world that are only now beginning to press through into the visible one. This is the nature of how heaven operates. The work is done in the invisible first, thoroughly, completely, with a precision and an attention to detail that exceeds anything human craftsmanship can produce. And then, when the invisible work is finished, when every element is in place, when the timing is exactly what appointed moment requires, it begins to appear in the visible world. Not gradually in the sense of slow and uncertain progress, but suddenly in the sense of things that were invisible being revealed as having been real and complete all along. The harvest does not grow slowly above the surface. It grows slowly below it, and then one day the field that looked empty is full. And the fullness was not created overnight, even though it became visible overnight. Your field is fuller than it looks. What has been growing below the surface of your visible life through every season of waiting, every season of faithfulness in obscurity, every season of choosing the frequency of your assignment over the comfort of release, is more substantial than anything your current visible circumstances can accurately represent. The invisible work that has been done in you and around you and on your behalf through the battle you have been enduring is not proportional to what you can currently see. It is proportional to the assignment. And the assignment, as you are beginning to understand more clearly, is larger than anything your current circumstances would suggest. Think about the moments in your life when something shifted unexpectedly. When a door opened that you had stopped expecting to open. When a connection was made that had no logical explanation in terms of how it came about. When a resource appeared at the exact moment it was needed from a direction you had not been looking. When a word came to you in the quiet, a knowing, a clarity, a sense of direction that arrived fully formed, without the usual process of reasoning and deliberation that precedes most human decisions. Those moments were not luck. They were not coincidence. They were the visible edge of invisible work that had been underway for longer than you knew. They were the harvest breaking the surface of the field. They were the verdict being executed in visible form. There are more of those moments coming, not because you have finally earned them through sufficient faithfulness. You cannot earn what was already assigned to you before you existed. They are coming because the invisible work is reaching completion, because the preparation that the battle was used to accomplish in you is arriving at the level of depth and solidity that the assignment requires, because the chosen one that you have been becoming through every season of wait and silence and quiet endurance is the chosen one that the next chapter of your story requires. The version of you that exists on this side of the battle is not the version that the battle was trying to produce. It is the version that the battle was trying to prevent, and it could not prevent it. Because what God places in a chosen one cannot be taken out by anything that operates beneath the authority of the one who placed it there. The book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, carries words that chosen ones have held on to through every generation of the battle. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. In all things. Not in the pleasant things, not in the obvious blessings, not in the seasons when the evidence of divine favor is visible and abundant. In all things. In the closed doors, in the delayed answers, in the seasons of silence, in the battles that felt like they were destroying you, in the losses that seemed to contradict everything you believed about the faithfulness of heaven. In all of it, in every single piece of the story, the hand of the one who called you was working toward a good that your current vantage point could not yet see. But that was never for one moment in doubt. Every closed door was working toward your good. Every delayed answer was working toward your good. Every season of obscurity, every painful recalibration, every relationship that ended, every opportunity that dissolved, every plan that collapsed, every moment when the gap between where you were and where you believed you were supposed to be felt like evidence of divine negligence or human failure. Every single one of those moments was being worked actively and purposefully and with extraordinary precision toward a good that is so specifically tailored to who you are and what you were made to do that, when you finally see it fully, you will not be able to imagine how any other path could have produced it. That is the nature of the verdict that was written when you chose to stay. It is not a generic blessing. It is not a vague improvement in circumstances that could have happened to anyone. It is a specific, precisely designed, perfectly timed manifestation of everything that the invisible work of the battle was always moving toward. And it has your name on it in a way that nothing else in the history of creation has ever had your name on it, because there is only one you, only one frequency like yours, only one chosen one with your exact combination of wounds and hunger and history, and what is coming was designed for exactly that one. You are not waiting for something that might happen. You are standing at the edge of something that has already been decided. The verdict is written. The invisible work is reaching its completion. The harvest that has been growing in the dark beneath every season of faithfulness that felt unproductive is pressing toward the surface with a force that circumstances no longer have the authority to contain. What God decided about your life before you were born has not been revised, has not been reconsidered, has not been quietly shelved in response to the seasons when you were not at your best or your most faithful or your most certain. It has been in motion the entire time. working through every season, using every piece, wasting nothing. The shift already happened, chosen one. You made a choice that the invisible world registered as thunder. You stayed when staying was the hardest thing. You kept the frequency alive when the noise of the battle was doing everything in its power to drown it out. You held the weight when laying it down would have been so much easier and so much less. And in return, something was written about you in a courtroom that no opposition can enter and no circumstance can overturn. A verdict that says, this one was faithful. This one held the frequency. This one was tried and did not break. And what has been prepared for this one will now be delivered in the fullness of time, with the precision of a God who has never once been late and has never once been wrong. It is already done. What you are waiting to see has already been decided, and the seeing is coming. The seeing is coming, and before it arrives in its fullness, there is something that needs to be said directly to the ones who almost did not make it to this moment. Not the ones who sailed through every season with their faith intact, and their confidence unshaken, and their sense of divine favor consistently visible and warm. Those ones have their own story, and it is beautiful in its own way. But this word, right here, right now, is for the ones who stood at the edge of surrender, the ones who came within a breath of laying it all down, the ones who sat in the dark and had a conversation with themselves that no one else was present to hear, a conversation that went very close to the conclusion that the assignment was not real, the calling was imagined, the frequency inside them was a story they had told themselves to make the ordinary bearable, and that the kindest thing they could do for themselves was to stop believing it and start living like everyone else. You know who you are. You do not need to announce it. You do not need to raise your hand or confess it publicly, or do anything that feels exposed or vulnerable in ways you are not ready for. But inside, in the place where you hold the true account of your journey, the unedited version that has not been tidied up for public consumption, you know the moments I am describing. You know the night, or the morning, or the afternoon in a parking lot, or a bathroom, or a room that felt smaller than it had ever felt before, when the weight became so specific and so heavy and so relentless that the only thought that offered any relief was the thought of setting it down permanently, of walking away from the frequency, of choosing the quieter, smaller, less demanding life that did not require you to keep believing in things you could not see, keep carrying things whose weight was not distributed evenly across your days, keep showing up for an assignment whose evidence was so consistently invisible that maintaining faith in it required more than you sometimes felt you had. You stood at that edge. Some of you stood there recently. Some of you stood there more than once. Some of you are standing there even now, even as these words reach you, even as something in you responds to the frequency of what is being spoken, and something else in you is still go, the juice with the possibility of release. And to every single one of you, to every chosen one who has stood at that edge and held on, who chose one more day of faithfulness when the logic of surrender was more coherent than the logic of continuing, I want to say something that I need you to receive, not as a compliment, but as a declaration of fact. What you did at that edge was the most powerful thing you have ever done. More powerful than any moment of visible success, more powerful than any season of obvious blessing, more powerful than any experience of clear and unmistakable divine favor that arrived when the evidence was abundant and the faith required was minimal. The moment you stood at the edge of surrender, with everything in the visible world pointing toward the rationality of letting go, and you held on, anyway you deployed weapon in the spirit realm that darkness has no adequate response to, because the weapon of the chosen one who holds on in the dark is not something that can be countered or neutralized or worn down over time. It is the weapon that wins wars. It is the weapon that turned the tide of every battle in the invisible realm that has ever ultimately resolved in favor of the chosen. It is faithfulness without evidence. And it is the most terrifying thing the opposition ever encounters in the life of a person it has been assigned to stop. Daniel stood at that edge in a lion's den, not metaphorically, literally in a pit with animals designed by nature to tear him apart in the dark, with no visible means of rescue, with no evidence available to his physical senses that anything was going to prevent the outcome that the logic of his situation was pointing toward with complete certainty. He had no angelic announcement in advance. He had no vision of the outcome. He had no word of reassurance delivered ahead of time to carry him through the night. He went into the darkness with nothing but the frequency inside him that had been proven reliable through every previous season. And he held on through the night. And the morning came, and the stone was rolled away, and the king who had put him there ran to the edge of the pit before the sun was fully up, calling down into the darkness with a voice that the text describes as anguished, asking the question that he already feared the answer to. And Daniel answered from the darkness, still alive, still whole, still carrying the frequency. The lions had been present all night. They had simply been unable to touch what heaven had decided was untouchable. Your lions have been present. Some of them are still present. The things that were designed to destroy you have been in the room with you, and you are still here, still whole in the ways that matter most, still carrying the frequency, still the signal. And if you are asking why they have not been able to do what they were designed to do, the answer is the same one that Daniel's story offers. What heaven decides is untouchable does not become touchable because the opposition is persistent or creative or willing to wait a long time for its opportunity. The decree of protection over a chosen one who walks in faithfulness is not provisional. It is not conditional on the chosen one being at their strongest or most confident or most spiritually polished. It holds through the dark night. It holds through the lion's den. It holds through the edge of surrender. It held for you. It is holding for you right now. The book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 2, speaks directly into this. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. Through the waters, through the rivers, through the fire, not around, not instead of, through. The promise of the chosen life has never been a promise of exemption from the difficult passage. It has always been a promise of presence through it and preservation within it. You were not promised a path that avoided the lion's den. You were promised a God who goes into the lion's den with you and ensures that what was designed to consume you cannot fulfill its design. Every chosen one who almost turned back and did not is a testimony to that promise being kept in the most specific and personal terms. Every chosen one who held on through the night that felt longest, who chose one more day of faithfulness when surrender was the easier option, who kept the frequency alive in the darkness, is walking, breathing evidence that the protection of heaven over the life of the chosen is not theoretical. It is practical. It is precise. It is present even when it is entirely invisible. And it has been present in your life through every single passage that was designed to end your story before it reached the chapter it was always moving toward. Now, to those of you who are still standing at the edge, still negotiating with the possibility of release, still holding the conversation in the private space of your own heart about whether continuing is worth what it costs, I want to ask you to do one thing. Not a grand gesture, not a dramatic recommitment that requires more energy than you currently have. Just one small thing. Type the words, "I am still here," in the comments below. Not for the audience, not to perform faithfulness for people who are watching, but as a declaration to the invisible world, as a stake driven into the ground of your own story, as a marker that says, whatever this night has cost me, whatever this season has required, whatever the edge has felt like, and however close I have come to it, I am still here. The frequency is still alive, and I have not yet said my final word on what my life is going to become. I am still here, 4 words. But in the spirit realm, those 4 words from the mouth of a chosen one who has been through the fire and is still standing carry the weight of a declaration that reshapes what is possible in the invisible world around their life. Say it. Type it. Mean it. Because the ones who are watching your faithfulness from the invisible realm, the ones who are fighting on your behalf through the battle you cannot see, need to hear from you that you have not vacated the field, that you are still present, that the frequency is still transmitting, that the chosen one they were sent to fight for has not decided that the assignment was not worth the cost. You are worth fighting for. Your assignment is worth the cost. And the ones who almost turned back and held on are not the weakest links in the chain of the chosen. They are the strongest, because they proved, in the moment when proof was most costly, that the frequency in them was not dependent on circumstances, not conditional on visible evidence, not subject to the fluctuations of feeling or the logic of surrender. They proved that what God placed in them was genuinely, permanently, unshakably theirs. And that proof, made in the darkness, is the testimony that the light will carry forever. You are still here, and still here is exactly where the miracle was always going to find you. Still here is not a small thing. In a generation that has been taught to measure value by velocity, to judge the worth of a journey by how quickly it produces visible results, to assess the validity of a calling by how smoothly it unfolds, and how consistently it generates evidence that can be shown to others, the chosen one, who is still here after the long and costly passage, is not simply surviving. They are demonstrating something about the nature of what they carry that no season of easy blessing could ever demonstrate with the same clarity or the same power. The long faithfulness of the chosen one is not just a personal achievement. It is not just a private testimony about their own endurance. It is a statement written in the fabric of history about the reliability of the God who called them and the unbreakable nature of the assignment that was woven into them before the world began. Because here is what the chosen ones who are still in the middle of their long season do not yet fully see. They see their own story from the inside, which means they see the exhaustion, the confusion, the gap between the promise and the current reality, the accumulated weight of a faithfulness that has not yet produced the harvest that was always its destination. They see the personal cost. They feel the personal cost in the way that only the one carrying the weight can feel it, in the way that cannot be fully communicated to anyone who has not carried the same specific kind. But they do not yet see what their story looks like from the outside. They do not yet see the ripple. They do not yet see the reach. They do not yet see the extraordinary scope of what their quiet, persistent, costly faithfulness has been producing in dimensions and directions and timelines that their current vantage point cannot access. Your obedience is not contained to your own life. This is one of the deepest truths about the nature of the chosen assignment, and it is one that the enemy of your calling has worked consistently to hide from you, because if you understood it fully, if you grasped the actual scope of what your faithfulness has been producing, you would never again be tempted to measure its worth by what it has produced in your immediate visible circumstances. The obedience of a chosen one is not a local event. It does not stay within the borders of a single life or a single generation or a single community. It travels. It bends things. It opens doors in timelines that have not yet arrived. It unlocks inheritances for people who have not yet been born. It creates conditions in the invisible world that make possible things that would otherwise have been impossible. Not just for you, but for everyone whose life is connected to yours in ways that the human mind cannot fully map. Daniel's obedience did not just preserve his own life. Daniel's faithfulness in Babylon created conditions that eventually led to the release of an entire captive people from an empire that had held them for generations. One man's quiet, consistent, costly alignment with his assignment produced consequences that extended across decades and touched thousands of lives that had no direct relationship with him. The lion's den was not just about Daniel. The interpretation of the king's dream was not just about Daniel. The fasting and the prayer and the steadfast refusal to defile himself with what the system was offering was not just about Daniel. Every act of faithfulness was a stone dropped into water, and the ripples moved outward in directions and distances that Daniel himself could not have calculated or predicted or fully understood in the moment of the dropping. Your faithfulness is dropping stones into water right now. Every day that you chose to hold the frequency, every moment that you kept the signal alive when the pressure was working to suppress it, every quiet decision to stay aligned with your assignment rather than releasing into the easier path of the ordinary was a stone. And the water is still moving. The ripples are still traveling. They are reaching people you have not met, touching situations you have not yet encountered, creating openings in timelines that are still approaching, building something in the invisible world that the visible world has not yet received, but that is already real, already complete, already written in the permanent record of a God who does not forget the faithfulness of the chosen and does not allow it to produce less than the full scope of what it was designed to produce. Think about the generations that come after you. Think about the children, whether biological or spiritual, who will inherit the world that your faithfulness is currently shaping. They will not know, most of them, what the shaping cost. They will not see the lion's den from the inside. They will not feel the weight of the season that produced the breakthrough they will walk into. They will simply find certain doors open that would have been closed, certain paths accessible that would have been blocked, certain inheritances available that would have been forfeited, and they will not have language for why the landscape of their lives is different from what it might have been. But it will be different because of you, because of the stone you kept dropping into the water even when you could not see the ripple. This is what generational impact actually looks like from the inside of the generation that is producing it. It does not look like a grand and visible legacy project. It does not look like a monument being built in real time that everyone around you can see and admire and point to as evidence of the significance of your work. It looks like faithfulness in obscurity. It looks like obedience without audience. It looks like the long and costly maintenance of a frequency in a world that is working constantly to replace it with noise. It looks, from the inside, exactly like what your life has looked like through the seasons that felt most unproductive, most hidden, most distant from anything that resembled the scale of impact that a chosen life is supposed to produce. But the inside view is not the complete view. and the chosen one, who judges the scope of their impact by the inside view, is like a person standing in the middle of a field trying to assess the size of the field by looking at the ground directly beneath their feet. The field is larger than the patch of ground you are currently standing on. The impact of your faithfulness is broader than the circumstances that are currently visible to you. The history that your obedience is writing is longer than the chapter you are currently living inside. And when the fullness of it becomes visible, whether in your own lifetime or in the lifetimes of those who come after you, the scope of what was produced by the quiet faithfulness of one chosen one will be something that neither you nor anyone around you could have calculated from the inside of the season that produced it. The book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9, carries words that were written for exactly this moment in the journey of the chosen one who is tired and still faithful. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. At the proper time. Not at the time we calculated. Not at the time that felt logical or fair or proportional to the investment of faithfulness that had already been made. At the proper time, which is a time determined by a wisdom that can see the full scope of the field, the full depth of the root system, the full readiness of the harvest, in ways that the one who planted and watered and waited simply does not have access to from inside the season of growing. The proper time is not infinitely distant. The proper time for the chosen one who has been faithful through the long season is not a theoretical future event that exists only as a comfort for the present moment of endurance. It is a specific, appointed, already determined moment that is approaching with the same certainty as the sunrise approaches through the long hours of the dark night. The farmer does not worry that the sunrise might not come. The farmer does not spend the night calculating the probability that the morning will arrive. The farmer rests in the knowledge that the system the field is embedded in is reliable, that the cycle that was established at the beginning of creation has never once failed to produce morning after night, and harvest after planting, and fruitfulness after the long season of growth in the dark. You are embedded in a system that is reliable. The cycle of faithfulness and harvest has never once failed to produce what it was designed to produce in the life of a chosen one who did not give up before the proper time arrived. And you have not given up. You are still here. The frequency is still alive. The stone is still dropping. The ripples are still traveling. And the proper time, the specific and appointed and already determined moment when what has been growing in the dark breaks the surface and becomes visible and undeniable and proportional to the full scope of what the faithfulness actually was. That moment is not as far away as the inside view of your current season makes it feel. Something is shifting in the timelines around your life right now. Not because of anything dramatic or visible or publicly verifiable, but because the chosen one who stayed faithful through the long season has reached a threshold in the invisible world that the visible world is about to respond to. The roots have gone deep enough. The preparation has been thorough enough. The frequency has been maintained through enough seasons of pressure that it is now stable in a way it was not before, tested in a way it was not before, proven in a way it was not before. And what is stable and tested and proven is what heaven releases into its full assignment. Not the untested, not the untried, not the one who has only ever carried the frequency in easy seasons, the one who carried it through the hardest ones. That is you. You carried it through the hardest ones, and the carrying is not wasted, not forgotten, not unaccounted for in the ledger of a God who watches the faithfulness of the chosen with an attention that never wavers and a memory that never fades. Every day of the long season is recorded. Every moment of obedience without audience is honored. Every stone dropped into the water, no matter how small it seemed in the moment of dropping, is producing a ripple that is still traveling toward a shore that the obedient one has not yet seen, but that has always, always been there. Your obedience is rewriting history, not just your own. The history of people you will never meet in timelines you cannot yet see. And the rewriting has already begun. The ink is already on the page. The story is already different because you are in it, because you stayed in it, because you refused to let the frequency go quiet when the silence was loudest, and the weight was heaviest and the edge was closest. You are not just a chosen one, you are a history maker. And the history you are making is larger, and more permanent, and more beautiful than anything the inside view of this season has allowed you to see. The crown that was always yours is closer than it has ever been. The crown that was always yours is not something you are still trying to earn. It is not a reward waiting at the end of a performance review conducted by a heaven that has been tallying your successes against your failures and calculating whether the net result qualifies you for what was promised. The crown was decided before the battle began. It was decided before the lion's den, before the long season, before the edge of surrender, before the night that felt like it would never produce a morning. It was decided in the same moment that the assignment was decided, in the same breath that the frequency was placed in you, in the same act of divine intention that looked at everything you would face, and everything you would carry, and everything you would almost lose, and everything you would choose to hold on to anyway, and said, "This one, this is the one, this is the chosen one for this assignment, for this generation, for this specific and irreplaceable role in the story that is being written across history." And the crown that belongs to that chosen one has never been given to anyone else, has never been reassigned, has never been quietly removed from the inventory of heaven, because the chosen one took too long, or stumbled too many times, or stood too close to the edge on too many dark nights. It has your name on it. It has always had your name on it. And you are arriving at it now, not because you finally became worthy of it, but because the journey that was always leading you to it has brought you to this place, this moment, this threshold where the distance between who you have been becoming and the fullness of who you were always meant to be, to something that the next season of your life will close completely. Daniel wore his crown differently than the world around him expected a crowned person to look. He did not look like power in the way that Babylon defined power. He did not accumulate the symbols of dominance that the empire used to signal authority and significance. He wore his crown the way the chosen always wear theirs, in the quality of his presence, in the clarity of his perception, in the accuracy of his words, in the weight his silence carried in rooms full of noise, in the way that kings, who commanded armies and controlled territories, would go silent when Daniel spoke, because what came through him carried a frequency that every human soul recognizes at its deepest level as something that did not originate in the merely human. That is the crown of the chosen, not a visible object that sits on the head, a visible reality that radiates from the life. You have been wearing yours, quietly, imperfectly, sometimes barely, through every season that was designed to strip it from you. And it is still there. It never left, because what God places on a chosen one does not require the chosen one to hold it in place. It is held by the same hands that placed it, through every stumble and every silence and every season of obscurity, waiting for the moment when the chosen one finally stops being surprised that it is still there and starts walking in the full authority of what it represents. That moment is now, not tomorrow, not when the circumstances align perfectly, not when the visible evidence catches up to the invisible reality. Now, in this moment, in this breath, in the decision you are making right now about what you believe, about who you are and what you carry, and what has been fighting for you, and what has been written about you in a courtroom, whose verdicts are permanent and whose authority is absolute. The crown is yours now. The authority is yours now. The frequency is yours now. The assignment is yours now. And the life that reflects all of those things fully and without apology is available to you now. Not as a destination you are still traveling toward, but as an identity you are stepping into in real time, in this moment, with every breath that follows this one. Before this message closes, before these words find their resting place in the space between what has been said and what you will carry forward from it, there is one more thing that needs to happen, and it is the most natural thing in the world for a chosen one who has heard what has been spoken here today. It is prayer. Not the formal, performed kind that requires the right words in the right order, delivered with the right amount of solemnity. The kind that is simply the frequency inside you, turning toward the one who placed it there, honestly, directly, without the elaborate architecture of religiosity that sometimes gets built between the human heart and the divine one it belongs to. So if you are willing, wherever you are right now, whether you are alone or surrounded, whether the room is quiet or full of noise, whether you feel the weight of everything that has been carried or you feel, for this moment, the strange lightness of having been seen and spoken to and reminded of what is true about you, just close your eyes for a moment. Not because God cannot hear you with your eyes open, but because the world is loud and your inner world deserves this moment of deliberate quiet. And in that quiet, let these words be yours, spoken from wherever you are, carried on whatever frequency your heart is currently running on, received by the one who has never once failed to hear the sincere cry of a chosen one who is simply turning toward home. Father, I am here, not because I have it all together, not because I have been consistently faithful in all the ways I know I was called to be, but because something in me, something you placed there that I have tried and failed to silence on my darkest nights, keeps turning toward you. I am tired in ways I cannot always name. I am carrying things I do not always understand. I have stood at edges that I am not proud of having stood at, and I have sometimes stayed there longer than I want to admit. But I am still here, the frequency is still alive, and I am choosing right now, in this moment, to believe again, not because the evidence has finally arrived, but because you have never once been wrong about me, even when I have been completely wrong about myself. Hold what I cannot hold. Carry what is beyond my strength. Clear the noise from the instrument you made me to be, and let what you placed in me finally, fully, without apology and without reservation, become what you always saw when you looked at me before I was born. I received the crown that was always mine. I received the assignment that was always mine. I received the frequency that was always mine. And I choose to walk in it, starting now, one step at a time, one day at a time, in the direction of everything you saw when you decided that this world needed someone exactly like me. Amen. That prayer was not the end. It was a beginning. The kind of beginning that does not announce itself with trumpets or dramatic, visible transformation, but that registers in the invisible world as the sound of a chosen one, stepping fully into what was always theirs. And the invisible world responds to that sound the way heaven has always responded to the faithfulness of the chosen. With movement, with momentum, with the slow and then sudden breaking through of everything that was growing in the dark toward the light that was always waiting for it. You are not the same person who began this message. Something moved in you as these words unfolded, something that was already present, but that found a new level of permission to be fully what it is. Carry that forward. Do not let the noise of the returning world talk you back out of what the quiet of this moment confirmed. You are chosen, you are loved, you are assigned, and the crown that was decided for you before the battle began, you are wearing right now. Whether you can feel it or not, whether the world can see it or not, whether the circumstances of your life currently reflect it or not, it is there. It has always been there, and it is never coming off. If this message has spoken life into you, these words have found the places in you that needed finding. Consider sharing it with someone who is carrying a weight they have not been able to name. Someone who is standing at an edge they have not told anyone about. Someone who needs to be reminded that the frequency inside them is real and the crown above them is permanent. And the battle around them is being won by forces far greater than anything arrayed against them. Like this message as a declaration that truth was spoken here today. Subscribe as a commitment to remaining in a space where chosen ones are consistently reminded of who they are. And if you feel moved to support the work of building this community further, the link to do so is in the description and in the pinned comment below. Every act of support is a chosen one, investing in the continued gathering of chosen ones who need to hear what you heard today. You came here for a reason. You stayed for a reason, and you are leaving different than you arrived. That is not a small thing. That is the chosen life, doing exactly what it was designed to do. Go carry the frequency, beloved. The world is waiting for what only you can bring.